Dark Shadows, number 25, BTR 12667, Air 2367, take one.
My name is Victoria Winters. The mistress of Collinwood lies stiffly in her bed, hovering in the narrow world between life and death. Unable to move, unable to communicate. A slow heartbeat and staring eyes, the only indication that life still exists within her. How is she?
No change.
I wish I could do something.
There isn't the slightest movement. I've been watching her eyes, hoping to see a blink or anything. But there's nothing, absolutely nothing. I've never seen such stillness.
I'll sit with her for a while.
Thanks, I'll be all right.
Oh, you've got to have some lunch.
I'm not hungry.
Please go downstairs and have something.
Vicky, I don't want to leave her.
Why not? I'll be here, and if anything happens, I'll call you.
Because I keep getting the feeling that she's trying to say something to me.
Why do you say that?
I don't know exactly. I just feel that she's trying to tell me something. Mother. Mother, are you trying to say something to me? Mother. Mother, what are you trying to say? Mother, speak to me. Please speak to me.
She can't hear you.
She can. I'm sure she can.
You can't be sure. Carolyn, please don't do this to yourself.
Why can't the doctor do anything?
He's done everything that he can do here. That's why he wants to take her to a hospital so he can give her a more thorough testing.
Let them bring the testing equipment here.
That's impossible.
My mother doesn't want to be moved.
I know. But it's not a question of that now. There's not much choice in it.
I promised her.
Carolyn, if your mother had known how sick she was, she would have consented to being moved.
Vicky, I know my mother. She wouldn't leave this house under any circumstances. And I don't intend to take the word of just one doctor. I want the opinion of specialists. One of them is bound to know what's wrong with her.
Well, there is a doctor coming here soon.
I didn't know that.
I meant to tell you sooner.
Who is he?
A Dr. Guthrie. Frank Garner contacted him.
What does he specialize in?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. But Frank feels he'll be very helpful if he has a look at your mother.
Vicky, I don't care who looks at her, as long as they can help her. I just want her to get well.
I'll be downstairs if you need me.
How is she?
The same.
Yes, she is. Well, as long as she's not worse.
Of course, she only seems the same. She might be getting worse.
Well, if she's getting worse, this is no place for her to be.
It's where she wants to be.
Oh, kitten. Where one wants to be and where one has to be are two different places. Your mother should be in the hospital.
Uncle Roger, we've been through all this. It's her wish that she be treated here.
You know,
And I intend to see that her wishes are carried out.
there was one thing about your mother. She never did know what was best for her. And if something isn't done
If
soon...
you don't mind.
You know, Carolyn, you're very much like your mother. Incredibly stubborn to the point of being reckless.
I noticed that you weren't terribly satisfied with the doctor's lack of diagnosis.
Well, at least he had the sense to recommend sending her to a place where the chance of an accurate diagnosis is greater. I give him credit for that much.
But isn't it possible that a specialist might diagnose something that wouldn't require sending her to a hospital?
Well, it's possible, but it's not very likely. I think that any proper diagnosis is going to result in your mother being sent to a hospital.
It's what she wants, and that's the way it's going to be.
Well, you sound very important and very official. I think I should remind you that your mother is my sister, and my concern for her is at least as great as yours.
I'm sure it is.
And it is my considered opinion that she should be hospitalized, and I urge you to do something about it right away.
You know where I stand.
Very well. If you don't give the permission, I certainly shall.
You don't have the authority.
Oh, don't I? Well, we'll see about that. You know, you have quite a ways to go before you become the mistress of this house. I think I will have a talk with Garner and find out exactly what areas you're in charge of and the limits to it.
I wish you would do that. I think it's about time you found out what those limits are. I'm sure it will enlighten you.
You know, you're getting more and more like me every day.
Surely that's a compliment.
Surely. I hope you reconsider.
Frank Garner is sending in someone to see her today. If we're still able to talk, I'll let you know after he examines her.
Good.
Mother, something tells me that whatever is wrong with you can't be cured in a hospital.
Miss Winters,
Yes?
I'm Dr. Guthrie.
Oh, please come in.
Thank you.
We've been expecting you. May I take those?
Well, Frank Garner suggested that I talk to you privately before I examine the patient.
Of course. We can talk in here.
I must tell you, I don't like to be quite as secretive as this.
I understand that. But Frank did explain the circumstances, didn't he?
Yes, he did, which intrigued me enough to come.
I'm very glad you did. Will you please sit down?
Do you understand the kind of work that I do?
Parapsychology. It has to do with extrasensory perception.
Yes, that's right, except I go further than that, to investigate other psychic phenomena, such as reports of the supernatural. We have a research lab at the college.
Frank's told me. And he says that if anyone can be of help, it's you.
Oh, he's a flatterer. No, unfortunately, we're unable to give explanations for many of the so-called phenomena that we're called upon to research. So many of these reports are false or pure hallucination, even though they seem to come from people with very good background.
Did Frank give you enough to go on?
For a start, yes. But in the interest of science, I'll have to use my own methods. I'll compile as much data as I can and then try to make an evaluation. Now, I may come up with something, or again, like so many cases, nothing.
So many things have happened here. It's very hard to know what's real and what's not.
Well, if I can do my job, that's exactly what I'll tell you.
Dr. Guthrie, have you ever seen
A ghost? No, I've never had the pleasure.
Do you believe in them?
Well, I've been very close to finding that out. For the past few years, I've assembled enough evidence to support the theory that they do indeed exist, but never, unfortunately, the concrete proof to prove it to me personally.
Are you a skeptic?
No, that's just an attitude, a role that I'm forced to play so that I can evaluate the evidence more fairly. I'm afraid that otherwise I might start believing everything that I'm told.
The things that have happened here are very hard to believe.
Well, I'll find an answer. Some kind of answer.
How shall I present you to the others?
Well, you can present me quite truthfully as a psychologist.
But if they ask what you specialize in?
The psychosomatic. You can tell them that it's quite possible that her illness is caused by something on her mind.
All right.
And that may be closer to the truth than you think.
Yes. The doctor couldn't find anything wrong with her, but he wants to examine her more thoroughly.
Well, he should, of course. But I'd like to see her now.
Certainly. Oh, Roger,
Yes?
the doctor's here.
Oh, what doctor is this?
This is Dr. Guthrie.
Oh, how do you do, Dr. Guthrie?
Mr. Collins, very glad to meet you. Frank Garner suggested that I drop by on this case.
Oh. Well, that was very kind of him. I hope you can do something for my sister.
Well, I hope so, too.
I should be glad to have an outside opinion. Our family doctor claims that he's never seen anything like this in all of his experience. I certainly hope that you don't come away with the same comment.
Well, from what I've heard, well, might.
Well, I should be very disappointed in you if you do. However, Doctor, if your findings are similar, I hope that you will persuade my niece that her mother should be sent to a hospital.
Mr. Collins, if what I suspect is true, the patient will not spend another moment in this house.
Come in. Carolyn,
This is Dr. Guthrie.
how do you do, Doctor?
How do you do, Miss Stoddard?
I understand that Frank Garner called you in.
Yes, I've known Frank for several years.
You're a specialist.
Yes, in psychosomatic disturbances.
Psychosomatic. You mean you think my mother's illness might be mental?
Well, only that, from what I've been told, it's possible that her illness was induced psychologically.
What makes you think that?
Well, I spoke to her physician this morning, the man who examined her, and I listened to his impressions. Her physical condition seemed so good that I thought a look into the psychological essential.
At this point, I'm willing to try anything.
May I examine her?
Please.
This is the way that she's been?
Since it happened, she was talking and seemed to have all of her senses, and then suddenly, without any warning, I found her like this.
Or she was alone then, when she went into this state?
I'm quite certain.
How long have her hands been like this?
They were like that when I found her.
I see. Can you remember what she was talking about when you last spoke to her?
Yes. She was asking to see her lawyer and putting me in charge of things.
Essentially, then, she was anxious.
Very.
She was particularly anxious about her nephew.
In what way?
She wanted me to keep his mother away from him.
Oh, yes, Frank filled me in on that. The relationship of Mrs. Collins to her son. What was the relationship to Mrs. Stoddard, to Mrs. Collins?
Well, it wasn't a very good one, obviously.
Was there anything else significant about her state of mind?
Yes. She had the feeling she'd forgotten something.
Forgotten something?
That she'd done something or gone somewhere.
In other words, an unexplained lapse of time.
Exactly. She had the feeling that she had gone out of the house and come back from wherever she'd been.
My mother seldom left the house, and she never left the property.
She must have had a memory block then.
I guess so. She said she went out the front door, and then she came in. A short time after that, she collapsed.
Yeah, I see.
What does it mean?
Well, on the surface, it could mean a very common occurrence. A reaction to trauma.
Trauma.
Yes, I'm suggesting that she had an emotional experience of such intensity, something shocking or frightening, that gave her nervous system a delayed reaction. Just as when you step off the curb in front of an oncoming automobile, and the car narrowly misses you, you jump back and then continue to cross the street. When you get to the other side, you start to shake.
But what sort of an experience could she have had?
I don't know. Whatever it was deep enough to block it right out of her mind.
How can you be sure of this?
I can't be sure. I can only go by what's given me. Would you close the curtains, please? Mrs. Stoddard. Mrs. Stoddard, can you hear me?
What's the matter?
Miss Stoddard, your mother is in a trance.
A trance?
What do you mean?
I mean that your mother is in a state of suspended animation.
I don't understand.
She's in a condition that could have been induced by, well, hypnosis.
How could that be?
If we knew that, we wouldn't have a problem.
Are you sure?
I'm quite sure. She is in a very deep state.
What should we do?
Well, the first thing we have to do is get her out of this house.
I can't.
Why not?
She didn't want to be moved. She's depending on me to carry out her wishes.
Her wish is no consideration now. It's essential that she be moved out of here.
Why?
Because the influence, whatever it is that caused the trance, may be present here in the house.
Influence.
Yes, your mother was placed in a deep trance by some unknown influence. Now, we have no idea how long the influence will hold this trance over her. If, indeed, it plans to let her go.
What is this influence?
I don't know as yet. But the trance may be permanent.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean that your mother stands a very good chance of never recovering consciousness.
Oh, no.
We've got to give her every possible chance.
What can we do?
Well, the first thing we can do is to remove her from the influence, to take her as far away from harm as possible. I'm talking about life and death.
Vicky, what shall I do?
Your mother didn't realize what was happening. Carolyn, you have no alternative.
No, I suppose not. All right. You have my permission to move her.
Good, Miss Stoddard.
I'll call the doctor and make all the arrangements.
Oh,
Thank you, Vicky.
Miss Winters, if you will,
Yes?
Not a word of this that I've spoken to anybody. Do you understand?
Of course.
And would you find out the name of the hospital to which she's to be sent so that I can have an associate of mine look after her?
I will. Why do you insist on this secrecy?
Because the fewer people who suspect what we know, the easier it will be to gather information. I would like to stay in Collingwood, meet everyone, and see what information I can find. I think that I can be a help to your mother.
Can she hear us?
No?
Her eyes. Do they see us?
Her eyes see only the nameless terror which made her this way.
Glenn Ford and Shirley MacLaine star in a lusty Western played for laughs. See The Sleep Man on Sunday Night Movie in color on ABC. Dark Shadows is a Dan Curtis production.